Get us here to join us. It's been a while since we've done a webinar with Tantalus. Some of you may have been on the conference call after Q2, so there will be a little bit of repetition, but we're going to try and make it a little bit different. I think the format today will be a quick overview of the quarter, and then we'll jump into Q&A. So any audience members that have questions, feel free to put them in the comments section, and we will get to those in a few minutes. As always, this presentation will contain forward-looking statements. If you'd like to know more about those, you can check them out on the company's presentation on the website, which was updated today. And with that all out of the way, hi, Pete. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Deb. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, exciting times for Tantalus. Maybe you want to give us a little bit of an update since we last had you on, which I think was 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah, sure, Deb. So there seems to be a delay. Am I coming across clearly? There's a delay on your comments. So sorry for technical glitch here. I just want to make
sure. You are
sure
now, yeah.
It's clear? Okay, great. Well, hopefully folks can
yeah, it's clear.
hear me clearly. You good, Deb?
Yeah, I'm good. Is there still a delay on your end? I'm not sure. It does seem like there's
a little bit, but we'll just we'll make do. So
apparently it's me that's delayed, Pete.
I find that hard to believe. I no doubt I'm always behind. So thanks for having us, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to provide an update. We shared a few weeks ago in mid-August our Q2 results, which from our perspective were solid. Another good quarter and certainly strong first half to the year. A few of the highlights, not to be too redundant for those that track us on a regular basis. We had one of the highlights that we shared was a record performance for the first 6 months of the year in orders converted out of our pipeline, both in terms of dollars, almost 50% growth over the prior 6-month period. It's pretty substantial. A good conversion of new utilities joining our user community, sort of ahead of our average for a 6-month period. And then from a financial perspective, we saw a little bit of revenue shift out of the quarter into future periods. That's really tied to the timing of capacity allocations with our meter partners, a little bit out of our control for the time being, but something that we're navigating through. But overall, almost $11 million in aggregate revenue, USD. Another very strong quarter in terms of recurring revenue recognized in the quarter. Good performance on still growing our annual recurring revenue, which at the end of Q2 stood at $12 million on a go-forward 12-month basis, and continue to demonstrate strong gross profit margins. While we're investing heavily in bringing the TrueSense Gateway to market, I'll shift gears on that momentarily after a few of the financial highlights. But despite continued heavy investment in R&D and sales and marketing to bring our new capability to market, the TrueSense Gateway, effectively EBITDA neutral for the quarter and pretty close to EBITDA neutral for the first 6 months. So overall, I think we're pleased with where the business fell after Q2 and in a fairly strong position as we really have accelerated here, focusing on the second half of the year. Beyond some of the financials performance, we also shared in the quarter a $10 million bought financing that was completed in May, Canadian dollar 10 million, led by Cormark Securities and Canaccord, with support from the other covering banks. So we were pleased to see the injection of capital onto the balance sheet that just puts us in that much stronger of a position to execute on our plan. The transaction was completed at $1.60. Decent share price from our perspective to raise capital, especially relative to the upward trajectory we have seen so far in 2024. And I'd say that capital really puts us in a position to execute now on the opportunity in front of us. We shared in our Q2 earnings that we have received orders for the TrueSense Gateway from, I believe it was 15 utilities is what we shared a few weeks ago. And the utilities that have provided us orders fall beyond the advisory committee of utilities that have been helping us build this product, test it, trial it, and ultimately bring it to market. So we're seeing some quick adoption, which is great through our channel and through both new and existing utilities. And we're just really excited as to where we sit.
Pete, can you provide some color on the 15 utilities?
Deb, we
how
did.
the
Yeah.
deployments are going, and maybe categorize some of those utilities?
So I'll share. I can't share all the details on that, Deb. But sort of let me disaggregate it this way to your question. We've announced a few new utilities in press release. One being the City of Bolivar, and is a public power utility in the southeast region of the U.S. And secured through our new channel partner for the TrueSense Gateway, IRBY, IRBY, multi-billion-dollar institution. The second is an investor-owned utility here in the state of Connecticut, where I am today, called United Illuminating, investor-owned. So the first time Tantalus has ever sold an intelligent connected device to an IOU. New market opportunity for us as we expand the number of utilities we can pursue. What's interesting, and the reason why we reference those two in particular, for the City of Bolivar, the TrueSense Gateway is being leveraged in a fiber deployment that utility is pursuing and actively deploying to bring broadband services to their community. And while it will enhance that investment in fiber, the TrueSense Gateway is the basis for that utility to modernize their distribution grid. It is the primary piece of infrastructure that the utility will rely upon, not only to enhance the traditional metering capabilities, but to leverage the advanced power quality measurement that we're now able to deliver at the residential meter socket, and prepare for the adoption of electric vehicles, rooftop solar or storage located behind the residential meter, or other smart appliances. It's from their perspective the foundation for grid modernization. Great opportunity for us to demonstrate that. They not only selected Tantalus, they've received their initial TrueSense gateways, which are actively being deployed. We kind of shared that in the Q2 report a few weeks ago, and still making excellent progress actually on getting those TrueSense gateways up and running. That count increases every day at this point, with a target of getting several hundred devices deployed in the next couple of weeks. The second utility to highlight out of that 15 is United Illuminating. It's interesting for a few reasons. It will leverage the cellular version of the TrueSense Gateway, and I can come back and provide a status update on where we are on the cellular version, Deb, in a moment. But the cellular version has nothing to do with fiber. It is being used by the utility really for two reasons. The first is to help that utility shift winter peak load from electric heating that United Illuminating has within their footprint. And the second ties to power quality, but most importantly, behind that power quality is fortifying a very old substation located in the city of Bridgeport, Connecticut. For those that are in the Connecticut area or may be familiar with Bridgeport from its history, rich history of manufacturing, it is a fairly challenged, economically challenged city here in the state of Connecticut, fairly large city, with a lot of folks that either struggle to pay bills or just are out of work. Given the way the economy locally here is materialized. So in the area of Bridgeport, it's one of the older sections of the distribution grid that United Illuminating is responsible for. And through power quality measurement, their goal is to demonstrate an ability to better manage a substation that ultimately will be upgraded over time, but upgraded in a manner that doesn't impact rates for consumers and ultimately within the cap structure, CapEx plan for the utility itself. So combination of winter peak shifting and fortifying a substation with power quality measurement. The United Illuminating project is being deployed in partnership with a number of entities, including GE Appliances for water heating, Savant for individual control of smart circuit breakers that will go into homes that opt into the United Illuminating program with us. We're leveraging the University of Connecticut's Eversource Energy Center for some advanced analytics. And we're also working with the National Renewable Energy Lab out of Boulder, Colorado, a nonprofit government entity here in the United States that is very much focused on the impact of renewables and what are called distributed energy resources. For the project with United Illuminating, as part of that winter peak load that we're trying to shift, electric water heaters will be turned into thermal storage. So renewable distributed energy resource, and we'll leverage NREL, National Rural Renewable Energy Lab, and some of their capabilities to really accelerate what we're doing. So really excited about that project as well. The balance, so other 12 utilities, it's a mix of advisory committee members as well as utilities that either have already deployed Tantalus systems or are just new to our user community. But a good blend of both existing customers, advisory committee utilities, new utilities like Bolivar, and our first investor-owned utility in United Illuminating. Deb, there's a bit of a delay, so I'll just carry forward as it relates
Sorry,
to.
Pete. I think it's
That's
my
okay.
connection.
Yeah, no worries. So as it relates to the cellular gateway, and for those that have tracked us, we were pleased to announce the UL certification for the fiber version of the TrueSense gateway, and the UL certification of the Ethernet version. That allows us to go into full commercial production at this point for both of those units. The cellular version is the coup de grace for us. And I don't mean to suggest the fiber and Ethernet versions aren't significant. They absolutely are, particularly for the 220 utilities that are actively deploying fiber all the way to the home today in the United States. And it's the fiber and the Ethernet gateway that are going to move the needle from a revenue profile perspective for Tantalus sooner. The cellular gateway, though, is applicable to every utility in North America, whether fiber exists or not. And what is outstanding, or what has been outstanding on the cellular gateway, is running through some FCC certifications, as well as another certification. The abbreviation is PTCRB, and that just ties to how a wireless device sits on a wireless network, both public and private LTE. I'd say we continue to make excellent progress towards the completion of those two outstanding items for the cellular gateway, and we'll be excited to share updates as they are available. But the cellular gateway, I think, is the device that in the 2026, 2027 timeframe really catapults Tantalus because it is very much applicable for investor-owned utilities like United Illuminating, stuck with legacy metering infrastructure with substantial regulatory drivers to start integrating distributed resources to shift peak load and protect legacy infrastructure inside that substation. So I think the UI project will be an excellent one to demonstrate and help us access much larger utilities than what we have historically supported. So we continue to make good progress on that device, and we're looking forward to getting it into the field in the coming weeks.
Okay, well, I think that's a good update. You referenced the uh, uh, advisory committee.
Yeah, Deb, I'm sorry, it was completely broken up. I heard advisory committee, and that was it.
Were you able, sorry, Pete, I don't know why this system seems to work for us every tethering to my phone, so I apologize. I'll just put it in the comments, Pete. How about that?
Absolutely. So I think as it relates to the advisory committee, I'll just I'll freelance here. The always dangerous to start tap dancing. We have 9 utilities that have been a part of an advisory committee to help bring the TrueSense Gateway to market. They have been working alongside our engineering team and our manufacturing team for over 2 years. It's a great demonstration of the value that that's inherent in this business. May not necessarily show up in our financial results, right? But we've got customers that are working alongside our team in an effort to ultimately try to bring a new product to market. As you know, as investors, myself included, and you look at opportunities, the Tantalus is in a really sweet spot where grid modernization is paramount, and ultimately, we're kind of in the right place at the right time with a number of tailwinds behind us. With that in mind, we're very mindful of how we allocate our cash and how we allocate our resources. And so the advisory committee is a great example of how we are certainly investing money on behalf of this organization and the industry we support, but we're doing it with a set of utilities that will be buying that product and that have already started to put this product into the field. And so it takes some of the guesswork out as we think about innovation and we think about the risk for investors of innovation. Sometimes utilities can come up with a great solution, but if there's not a market or a buyer on the other end of that solution, it's a problem. It impacts balance sheet right away. In this circumstance, the advisory committee has, I think, given our board of directors, certainly our executive leadership team, and the investors that have been supportive of us, I think a pretty good perspective on eliminating the notion of hope in a business plan, and making sure that that we've got a concrete way of monetizing the R&D investment that we have made. And so we're looking forward to that for sure, and expect to see deployments with the advisory committee activate. The one that we've referenced quite a bit is EPB Chattanooga. It's the electric utility in Chattanooga, almost 200,000 homes supported, one of the most advanced distribution grids in the United States, if not all of North America, with some self-healing capabilities. EPB is a big component of our advisory committee, and with the Ethernet gateway fully certified, UL certified, it's enables us to now activate our deployment with EPB. To give some folks order of magnitude, EPB today has they have our full system deployed across 200,000 homes that they service today for metering and grid modernization. They have a legacy product from us, which was our original effort to help them connect fiber to the home for their broadband deployment, which they did back when the Obama administration in 2008 allocated some money for infrastructure as part of a stimulus plan. There are about 80,000 legacy products from Tantalus at EPB Chattanooga. And so our goal is to work with the utility to start upgrading them from first generation product to the TrueSense Gateway. That gives some order of magnitude of what we're pursuing there. It'll take some time for full deployment there, and certainly we've got to work through their first phase of a deployment. But the likes of an order of magnitude that we're really excited about in terms of scaling this business and ensuring that our investors get a great return on the investment that we've made from an R&D perspective. Yeah, I see your question come through on other use cases, Deb. So thanks for that. Um, you know, the so we see some utilities like EPB that have deployed fiber all the way to the home and delivering broadband services. We see utilities like United Eliminating, investor-owned utility, focused on leveraging the TrueSense Gateway for behind the meter control in the circumstance of UI, as I had shared, United Eliminating electric water heating with our partner GE Appliances, and down to the circuit breaker level for other thermostats or devices inside an existing home that may not be yet intelligent, but going right to the circuit breaker, shift peak load. What we're seeing across the board with all utilities, though, is the innovation within the TrueSense Gateway around power quality sensing. And that's a little bit, it's power quality sensing is well known within the utility industry, but if you don't work in the utility industry, you may not have any clue what that means. So let me try to disaggregate that briefly without losing everyone. The common denominators, I should say, within power quality are voltage and current. And if you think about charging your iPhone or your TV in your house or your refrigerator, right, everybody on this call would be familiar with, is it a 3-prong plug with grounding? Is it like your washer and dryer that are 240 volts, right? Kind of looks a little bit different than the traditional electric plug that comes with our iPhone. And so utilities try to operate their systems within a certain range of voltage and within a certain range of current. And when systems get imbalanced and voltage either goes above or beyond those parameters, right, that's where power surges come into effect. That's what can burn out a refrigerator. It can burn out a TV. It can create fires in some circumstances. So utilities are constantly trying to monitor voltage and current. As you think about the introduction of electric vehicles, those of you that have seen some of our previous webinars, right? I like to use the example of the F-150 Lightning that I now plug into the side of my home. Right? When I double the amount of power that I'm consuming by charging my vehicle, for those of you listening that have a Tesla, slightly smaller battery, but you're still substantially increasing the amount of power that flows through the wires in your house, right? That has an immediate impact on voltage and current up to the pole top transformer. And so what we've been able to do is take a precision and level of granularity on power quality measurement. In fact, we're tracking 15 different metrics around power quality at the residential meter socket. That has never, I can say this definitively, it has never been done in the utility industry to date. The level of power quality sensing has only been available either inside the substation or with something called a power quality meter, an actual measurement device that isn't used for traditional metering, but sometimes installed on the side of people's homes to see if there's a power quality issue, especially if the utility has been responsible for burning out appliances in someone's home. Those power quality measurement devices are in the thousands of dollars, and they're kind of put for one place a couple of weeks, and then they're moved to another place and another place. This is a static, right? A stationary power quality sensing device that's at a price point where utilities can deploy this throughout their distribution grid. Maybe not at every meter socket, but certainly per pole top transformer. And it's that power quality measurement that not only provides value to every utility, regardless of whether they got peak load balance issues like United Illuminating, regardless of whether they're trying to support broadband services, every utility is trying to improve their power quality factors and their power quality measurement. It is the best way to protect assets. It's the best way to improve reliability. And for us and for our shareholders, as we gather more data, those 15 different parameters, metrics that we're tracking for power quality at the very edge of the grid, and we start to think about machine learning and leveraging what we've already been doing for the past decade around machine learning, and we start to think about layering in algorithms on top of that through software, right? There is a treasure trove of analytics that will come out of the data that we will be capturing on behalf of utilities. And the first one of that is our transformer monitoring analytics, which we deployed and commercialized and announced several weeks ago. We're seeing very quick adoption across our user community on leveraging that tool. And it's right, it's all tied to how do we help the utility fortify and protect existing assets while simultaneously improving their reliability and resiliency. And so it's that power quality data that I think is applicable for every utility, and ultimately I think going to be the key differentiator for Tantalus for years to come. So that's another deep dive into a use case, Deb, that hopefully provides some perspective and why we get so excited about this opportunity.
I was just going to ask you, Pete, I don't know if I'm still delayed, but maybe you could talk a little bit more about the transformer market for
Yeah, so I see the
people that aren't
transformers. Sorry, Deb. I think I was able to capture enough of what you said around the opportunity on transformers and what we're seeing. Some investors may be familiar with a company called Hammond Power. Others, I would imagine everybody's familiar with the likes of a Siemens and now GE Energy and some of the largest companies that operate in this space. Right? If you look at a company called Hammond Power, you'll notice, right, substantial results and directly correlated to what's happening globally, not just in North America, in the transformer market. There are a couple different, there are all types of sizes and different types of transformers. Specifically for purposes of this conversation and what's relevant to Tantalus is the distribution transformers. Right? So those are typically pad mounted. You'd see them in your neighborhoods, typically on a concrete platform or concrete base, sometimes green, sometimes gray, sometimes beige. Effort by the utilities to kind of camouflage them a little bit and have them blend in. There are also distribution transformers inside substations, and then there are pole top transformers. They look like big beer cans on the top of utility poles. That seems to be a visual that most people can get their arms around. And so within the transformer market, for pole top transformers and broadly defined distribution transformers, it's a fascinating and a frightening statistic. The average life of transformers that are deployed in the distribution grid, when they're built, kind of close to 40 years, give or take. Right, so utilities making, in some circumstances, everything from tens of thousands of dollar decision to multi-million dollar decisions. And then they expect that product, that device, that transformer to last up to 40 years if they maintain it properly. The average life of distribution transformers in the United States exceeds 40 years, meaning the average transformer deployed today in the United States, right, still, I think, largest economy in the world, exceeds the expected life of what otherwise is a trillion-dollar investment that's been made over decades in supporting the power grid for the US. The same is true in Canada, Mexico, other places around the world. And so what utilities are starting to see is, right, they're managing products or devices like it's the MacGyver approach. Right? Keep these things alive as long as possible because you can't just rip and replace everything. Right? It's not feasible. Where there's great sensitivity, and what we're seeing unfold is the lead times for transformers. As utilities do replace and upgrade, the lead times have gone from weeks and a few months to over 2 years. And the price for transformers, in most circumstances, varies based on size, is up about 4x. Great news for transformer companies, manufacturers of transformers, some that I've referenced already, and all excellent companies. They do a very good job of what they do. But for a utility, the mentality has historically been, especially for pole top transformers and distribution transformers, is let those transformers run until they fail. Hope that failure doesn't translate into explosion. I use the word hope specifically, right? Hope that it doesn't lead to an explosion. And then as it fails and people call to complain about an outage or potentially, even worst case scenario, fire, utility goes out and replaces. Well, if your lead times are 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, you can maintain inventory. When your lead times go to 2.5 years and a 4x cost, you can't manage inventory. So what utilities are trying to do is protect and fortify those assets. And that's where the transformer monitoring capabilities or transformer analytics, coupled with the TrueSense Gateway, the data driving that analytics is so important. It's how do we help utilities not only maintain what they already have in the field, new or old, 50 years plus, right, but also predict when that transformer is at a point of failure. And with the TrueSense Gateway, all that data that we're capturing, all the analytics we're wrapping around through transformer analytics, predict when that transformer is at a point of failure and go do something about it. In the event it's maintenance, roll a truck. In the event it needs to be replaced, schedule it in advance. In the event shit's hit the fan, excuse me for the curse word, but if that's unfolded with the TrueSense Gateway, immediately turn off the EV charger, immediately turn off the water heater. Inconvenient, no doubt, for us as consumers, but I'd much prefer to deal with some inconvenience than having a power outage, or even worse, having one of those transformers explode. Fortunately, the transformer that serves my house is not on my property, it's on my neighbor's, but I don't want to see a fire or an explosion on my neighbor's property. All right, that's bad for everybody. So how do we give the utility not only the visibility to protect those assets, but the prediction of at what point are they really at a point of failure, and then do something about it. So that's where the combination of device, TrueSense Gateway, data, power quality measurement, analytics, transformer monitoring, all come together as a platform to help utilities navigate what otherwise is a really complex issue in terms of maintaining infrastructure like transformers.
Try this again, Pete. I think if you could review maybe we've got one question. Do you see it down there? Do you want me to try and read
No, you're broken. So it just came across.
it?
Yeah, it's around a financing. Thank you for the question. We're fortunate in that the balance sheet is incredibly strong relative to the size of our organization today. I think we reported a really strong cash balance at the end of Q2. You'll see the details in that analysis. Incremental to the cash on hand, we have at the end of Q2 almost $4.5 million of available capital with existing debt facilities in place, one of which is with Comerica, longstanding senior lender to Tantalus. The second is with EDC, Export Development Canada. It's a Crown Corporation bank in Canada that's got a great mandate to help companies like Tantalus scale and grow and support the development of technology that's applicable globally. And so we have, between our cash position and what's available with EDC and Comerica, I think an adequate amount of cash to drive the growth of the business. So we do not have plans for a financing anytime soon. I'd caveat that if something emerges that might make sense, where we want to accelerate things, a transaction, an opportunity, then maybe that point of view changes. But at this point, based on what we're looking at and sort of the plans that we have for the second half of this year and well into next year, the good news is Tantalus does not need to go out and raise more capital at this point in time to execute on our growth strategy and bring the TrueSense Gateway to market. We are adequately capitalized to do just that. A financing would only be if there's an opportunity to accelerate this business and really scale it. So it would be opportunistic. So I see Deb in the text on news flow. So yeah, I'd say first and foremost, for those following us, really appreciate the continued interest and the support. I think we'll continue to have favorable news flow on the TrueSense Gateway, both in terms of finalizing the two outstanding items with the FCC and dealing with radiated and emitted signals from our device on a cellular radio. We're working with Sierra Wireless on that cellular radio. So an organization that lives and breathes those two certification processes regularly. So I have a high degree of confidence that those are forthcoming. Some expected news on just the progress that we're making with the cellular gateway. I would also expect to see some continued news flow on the progress that we make commercially as we bring all three versions of that product, the fiber, the Ethernet, and the cellular versions to market. Incrementally to that, and we shouldn't lose sight of the acquisition that we made 2 years ago of a business called Congruitive. We now refer to that as TrueSync Grid Data Management. It is a lot of the software that will be embedded on that TrueSense Gateway. We are seeing an increased volume of interest on the software capabilities in and of themselves, our TrueSync capabilities. And so we're seeing an increasing number of utilities really start to explore how to leverage the TrueSync Grid Data Management software across all silos within the utility to manage this influx of data, not just from intelligent devices that we're putting in the field for those utilities, but other devices that those utilities are trying to also extract and manage and warehouse and analyze data. So I think there's a great software component to this business. It's recurring revenue and software and services. Well, let me backtrack. Software and services revenue today is 35% of total revenue. Recurring revenue, 25% of total revenue today. I think there's a great opportunity for us to also drive growth for our shareholders with the TrueSync Grid Data Management capability. So I'd expect some news flow there as we get closer to the end of the year, and a few other utilities hopefully activating from pilot to commercial scale. And then I think we'll continue to make some progress with our analytics capabilities. I think we've got an early lead in the market on the transformer analytics that we've already announced. As we start to see real adoption and we build use cases and demonstrate how we've helped utilities mitigate real problems, you'll see a lot of that documented. It'll be geared for the utility industry, a little less so for investors per se. But I would think, we'll see a news flow continue on our progress that we're making with the advanced analytics. And last but not least will be the normal flow of updates from a financial profile perspective, Q3 earnings, and then certainly year end as we continue our march on a quarterly basis. I see a question. The risks that still exist. So, and Francis, thanks for the question. As I think about, as I try to categorize that in real time, there's the R&D, the development risk. There's the commercialization sort of categorized, right? There's risk in commercialization. There's risk in market adoption. I'm sure we could splice risk out and put it into multiple categories, but if I think about it in those three big categories, from an R&D perspective, Francis, I guess there's risk every day I get out of bed, especially with the way I seem to hurt myself and keep orthopedic surgeons in business. But I'd say for those that know me really well will understand that inside joke. But I'd say from an R&D perspective and completing the certification processes, I do not see significant or material risk at this point in time. I think we know exactly where we stand, and I think we understand the exact process and have a very good view as to what needs to be accomplished to a point of completion. From a commercialization perspective, that's actually the manufacturing. The good news is we have activated full commercial production on both the Ethernet and the fiber gateways. The first shipments have gone. The first installment of those commercial products underway at an increasing number of utilities. Bolivar is one as an example that I've referenced. So I think, with our team and the effort that's been made with our contract manufacturer, I think we'll be able to scale very effectively. And so there's always risk in manufacturing. And as we consistently improve our testing methodologies and ramp supply chain, maybe some timing risk, maybe some margin risk. But in terms of building the product, limited risk at this point, if any. I think we're now in commercial scale, or I should say commercial production. From an adoption perspective, that's the hardest one to get our arms around. When we map this out, and as we've shared, the advisory committee in and of itself represents $150 million of incremental revenue to scale this company over the next 5 to 7 years. I think as we see those advisory committee members start to deploy the first batch of the commercial production units, it gives us an increased confidence and visibility into what their timing is and what the contracting process is going to be. So I think we've got our arms around a reasonable amount of risk on the adoption, the conversion out of our pipeline. The fact that a decent chunk of those initial orders from 15 utilities are from utilities not a part of our advisory committee. It's hard to predict how quickly they scale. It's hard to predict what the aggregate dollar amount's going to be. It is significant, but I think we have an increased level of confidence that we've built a product that's coming to market at the right time and solves a set of problems for the utilities at a price point that is acceptable. And so that's where I'd say of the risks that are remaining, it's how quickly can we drive that adoption and from the adoption, right, revenue and cash flow for the business. I think timing at this point, more so in terms of risk, more so than are we going to be able to convince a utility that this is the right product? I think we've got a good a check in that box. So I don't mean to suggest it's slam dunk and there's no risks. That would be foolish. But I think if we look at it in the context of R&D, commercialization, manufacturing, and market adoption, we've made excellent progress on the R&D. We've made excellent progress on the commercialization, manufacturing. We are starting to put points on the board and revenue. We've referenced this. We expect revenue in Q3 from the TrueSense Gateway. I still stand on it. It will happen. There is revenue that will materialize in Q3 for this company from the TrueSense Gateway. It's the question in my mind is how quickly can we see the utilities move? How quickly can we influence them? What's the order of magnitude of scale? So I think, Francis, that's how I think about it, and more than happy to dive deeper to the extent that's of interest to you. And I see, Deb, I'll just keep going here. I see, is there another company that provides similar services? I see the initials here, sorry, WC. I'm not sure what that stands for, so sorry for not addressing you by your first name. In terms of aggregate grid modernization, there are several. I'd say there are some utilities that or some vendors that are more focused on metering, some organizations more focused on power quality sensing, and then there are some network companies in between. So I'd say that there are some competitors, no doubt, and there's some bigger players. The meter companies like Itron and Landis and Gear, I don't think are direct competitors, comparable. In some circumstances we compete head to head, but what we do is different, and what we're building and selling is different. We're not building meters, which in the case of Itron, Landis and Gear, the vast majority of their revenue is from building and selling meters. But they're correlated. As it relates to the TrueSense Gateway and the growth trajectory, there are 3 other companies, 2 of which are private, and then one of which is one of the biggest EV car companies in the world, Tesla. Tesla is building a meter socket similar to the TrueSense Gateway, and their focus is really around controlling the Tesla inverters for their EV charger, their power wall, and their rooftop solar capabilities, with the idea of selling that to a consumer. So the consumer has much more granular understanding of both what is available, solar storage, potentially a bidirectional EV if Tesla gets there, relative to how much they're consuming, right? How much power we actually consume every day. That's an element of our TrueSense Gateway, but it's just one of our use cases. We have not seen Tesla focused on power quality measurement. We have not seen them focus on broader advanced metering capabilities, which we do. We have not seen them capable of connecting to a fiber network like we are. But it's so my mind is good validation. The 2 private companies are in sort of corresponding prototype. One a little bit further advanced on just focused rooftop solar inverters. Nice product, but more about controlling that inverter than actual power quality measurement. So in my mind, we're first into market with a comprehensive set of use cases that are in the process and in some circumstances already validated. The other competitors, both private and Tesla, is validation that we're on the right path, and others see value in what we're doing. So I hope that answers that question. Deb, anything else? And WCC, yeah, my pleasure. Relative to some of the connectivity, I don't see any other questions, so we can give folks a few minutes back, Deb, but I do appreciate everyone's time. And thanks for continuing to follow us. We'll clearly have news flow coming as I've outlined, and we'll look forward to continuing to execute on our journey, especially as it relates to the opportunity in front of the company and helping utilities modernize their distribution grids. So with that, Deb, I'm going to sign off.
Thanks, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me, but
that came across.
Perfect.
Have a great day.